Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shivaji. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shivaji. Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shivaji. Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shivaji. Jaya Nitai Gora Sundara Nitai Gora Sundara Gora Hari. Nitai Gora Sundara Nitai Gora Sundara Gora Hari. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Gurudev Nitya Gora Haribo 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 Nitya Gora Haribo Nitya Gora Haribo 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 Nitya Gora Haribo. Jai Krishna Prabhupada Namaste Parvajagacharya Asata Satoshi Shimadas Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajagacharya Asata Satoshi Shimadas Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Brahmacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gokupinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Gangamaya Ki Jai Yamunamaya Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from text 41 of the 7th canto, chapter 9, and the chapter is entitled Prahlad Pacifies Lord Nrsingadev with Prayers. Let's see. Okay. This is the Govindam prayers meter. Evam svakarma patitam bhavavaitaranyam anyonya janma maranasana bita bitam Pashyan janam swaparavigraha vaira maitram Hante tipara charapi primudam aja Evam swakarma patitam bhavavaitaranyam Anyonya janma Shana Bita Bitam Pashan Janam Swapara Vigraha Vaira Maitram Hante Tipara Charapi Prihimudamadja Evam Swakarma Patitam Bhava Vaitaranyam Anyonya Janma Maranashana Bita Bitam Pasyan Janam Swapara Vigraha Vaira Maitram Ante Tipara Charapi Prihimudanaja. Please chant. Anyone?
Evam swakarma patitam bhavavaitaranyam anyonya janma maranashana bita bitam pashyan janam swaparavigraha vairamaitram ante tipara charapi brihimurham adya.
Evam swakama patitam bhavataranyam anyoya janma maharans ashana bita bititam pasyam jana swaparavigravarai maritram hatati paracharapi piri mudhamdad adya.
Evam svakarma patitam bhavavaitaranyam Anyonya janma maranashana bhita bhitam Pashyan janam svaparavigraha vairamaitram Ante tipara charapi prihimudamadya.
Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Evam, in this way. Swa karma patitam, fallen because of the reactions of one's own material activities. Bhava, compared to the world of nations, birth, death, old age, and disease. Vaitaranyam, in the river known as Vaitarani, which lies in front of the doorway of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. Anya, Anya, one after another. Janma, birth. Marana, death. Asana, different types of eating. Or say ashana. Bita, bitam, being exceedingly afraid. Pashan, seeing. Janam, the living entity. Swa, one's own. Para, of others. Vigraha, in the body. Vaira, maitram, considering friendship an enemy. Anta, alas. Iti, in this way. Parachara, O you who are on the other side of the river of death. Prihi, kindly save us all from this dangerous condition. Mudham, we are all foolish, bereft of spiritual knowledge. Adya, today, because you are personally present here. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Lord, you are always transcendentally situated on the other side of the river of death. But because of the reactions of our own activities, we are suffering on this side. Indeed, We have fallen into this river and are repeatedly suffering the pains of birth and death and eating horrible things. Now kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering. And by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us and maintain us. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj, a pure Vaishnava, prays to the Lord not only for himself, but for all other suffering living entities. There are two classes of Vaishnavas, the Bhajanandis and Gosjanandis. The Bhajanandis worship the Lord only for their own personal benefit, but the Gosjanandis try to elevate others to Krishna consciousness so that they may be saved. Fools who cannot perceive repeated birth and death and the other miseries of materialistic life cannot be sure of what will happen to them in their next birth. Indeed, these foolish, materially contaminated rascals have manufactured an irresponsible way of life that does not consider the next life. They do not know that according to one's own activities, one receives a body selected from 8,400,000 species. These rascals have been described in Bhagavad Gita as duskritino mudha. Non-devotees, those who are not Krishna conscious, must engage in sinful activities, and therefore they are mudhas, fools and rascals. They are such fools that they do not know what will happen to them in their next life. Although they see varieties of living creatures eating abominable things, pigs eating stool, crocodiles eating all kinds of flesh, and so on, they do not realize that they themselves, because of their practice of eating all kinds of nonsense in this life, will be destined to eat the most abominable things in their next life. A Vaishnava is always afraid of such an abominable life, and to free himself from such horrible conditions, he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. The Lord is compassionate to them, and therefore he appears for their benefit. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijam yaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Bhagavad Gita 4:7. The Lord is always ready to help the fallen souls, but because they are fools and rascals, they do not take to Krishna consciousness and abide by the instructions of Krishna. Therefore, although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is personally the Supreme Lord, Krishna, he comes as a devotee to preach the Krishna consciousness movement. Yade deka tade kaha Krishna Upadesh. One Tara A Desha. CC Madhya 7.128. One should become a guru and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world simply by preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Om Ginash Timidandasya Gina Gina Shalakaya Shakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakara Mayam Dadanti Swa Padantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namane Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitamane Shri Guru Kruna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paskacha Desacharane Vanchakapa Trivishcha Kripasandebevacha Patitanam Papavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome, dear devotees. Thank you for um, coming to Srimad Bhagavatam, where all the troubles of the heart almost destroyed to nil just by hearing. Which reminds me that I didn't get the microphone, so the Pajaris get here. So just 1 second. Those on the altar, sorry about that. I just simply forgot. Okay. So the verse again. My dear Lord, you are always transcendentally situated on the other side of the river of death. But because of the reactions of our own activities, we are suffering on this side. Indeed, we have fallen into this river and are repeatedly suffering the pains of birth and death and eating horrible things. Now kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering, and by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us and maintain us. So Prahlad Maharaj is continuing his prayers to his worshipful Lord, Shringadeva. And when we look back a little bit, um, what Prahlad Maharaj has actually been through, what he was exposed through to as a young child by his father. He attempted to kill him in so many ways. Um, so Hiranyakasipu was trying to use the material energy, which comes from Krishna, to kill one who is dear to Krishna. So it's impossible. If Krishna wants to kill you, who can save you? But if Krishna wants to save you, then who can kill you? So despite Hiranyakasipu arranging for all these different ways to kill him, you know, through fire, through freezing, cold wind, um, in a boiling oil vat, snakes trying to bite him, but the fangs couldn't pierce his skin. Elephants trampling him, tridents, breaking. They tried to kill him with tridents. And so he was using all the material elements, throwing him at the bottom of the ocean and, holding him down there with boulders and things. I mean, there were so many ways. And because he had subjugated um, the demigods, uh, he had the power of the demigods. So he was using all of these forces to try to kill. You know. And you think about the threefold miseries, the Adi Daivik. So he was in control of all of that. Hiranyakasipu. He had so much power, he thought he was God. Um, and so he used all these methods and ways. The the other threefold miseries, the Adi Bhautik. He was using other living entities to try to kill him. The elephants stomping him, snakes trying to bite him, and so on. And the element of fire, who he had his sister try to, Hiranyakasipu's sister, or Prahlad's aunt, take him up into the fire because she had the benediction that she could survive, you know, and wouldn't be burned in fire. But what actually happened is that Prahlad Maharaj, he didn't burn, and although she had that benediction, she actually was killed in the fire. So material energy was, which is an extension of Krishna. It's said in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, I think. Mama Maya Durachaya. What is it? Um, that this divine energy of mine. So Krishna saying that the material energy is his divine energy. So Hiranyakasipu was trying to take the divine energy and to kill his divine devotee. Uh, it wasn't going to happen. It was, let's see. Yeah, Daivihi Shagunamaya Mama Maya Durachaya Mami Va Ye Prabhajante Mayam Etam Tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. And just before I came here, I was thinking about a question that you guys can reflect on, and maybe later you can give your thoughts on it. That do we have to feel safe to surrender? Or do we have to surrender to feel safe? You know, we'll come back to that, but but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond this material nature. So because Prahlad Maharaj was so fixed in pure devotion that everywhere he turned, all he saw was Krishna. And there's a nice verse in C.C. Majja Lila 8:274 that perfectly describes Prahlad Maharaj in this sense. The Mahabhagavat, the advanced devotee, certainly sees everything mobile and immobile, but he does not exactly see their forms. Rather, everywhere he immediately sees manifest the form of the Supreme Lord. So no matter what Hiranyakasipu did, Prahlad Maharaj, he never hated his father. He never um, he just saw he never saw friends and enemies. Period. All he saw was Krishna. Krishna coming this way, Krishna this way, that way. You know, and so um, he was so absorbed, and his eyes were tinged with the salve of love. So therefore, when someone I heard someone say this recently that when uh, when someone is deeply in love, everything they see reminds them of that loved one, because of that meditation on that loved one. And that certainly was the case for Prahlad Maharaj. And in that purport of the verse I just read about the Mahabhagavat, the advanced devotee certainly sees everything mobile and immobile, but he does not exactly see their forms. Rather, everywhere he immediately sees manifest the form of the Supreme Lord. It quotes this verse, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochane Na. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyamasundar, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. So that also describes Prahlad. He was so absorbed. He was so absorbed in love that despite the efforts to kill him and how much his father hated him and had so much power in his hands, um, Prahlad was just equipoised and continued to love his father. Nothing Hiranyakasipu could do could break his compassionate love for his father and for all living entities. Um, Although he was completely surrounded by demonic people, teachers trying to teach him how to be a demon and how to deal with friends and enemies and all that kind of thing. Nothing could stop him from his meditation. So in that way, he was. We hear about the 9 processes of devotional service, and the first 3 are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, which actually we're engaged in right now. We're engaged in hearing. We're engaged in kirtan, speaking of the Lord, and we're also remembering the Lord in Bhagavatam classes. And it's said that Prahlad Maharaj was the perfect example of smarana, because everyone and everything helped him just to remember Krishna. I mean, that's all he could see. Um, and so that is something that we want to aspire to always be conscious of Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. Um, and the more we're conscious of Krishna, um, the more purified we become, the more that we can see Krishna in everything, even when we may not immediately see what is the purpose behind something that goes on in our lives. I mean, Prahlad is just the perfect example. I mean, if you have a if if Krishna is our dearest friend, and we're attached to the body, and we're going to wonder why is he allowing me to, to go through this type of suffering, falling off, being pushed off a cliff, you know, but because of Prahlad's meditation and Krishna's desire, it's like he landed as softly from that top of the cliff. He landed softly like a lotus flower, just lands onto the ground. No harm. Or that boiling water, that boiling oil, that vat of boiling oil. It was like like a cool bath for Prahlad. That's what it felt like for him. So, um, so it's a meditation and inspiration. The life and pastimes of Prahlad. It's an inspiration for us. And in the purport for today's verse, Prabhupada talks about the two classes of Vaishnavas, the Bhajanandis, Bhajananandis, and Vosjanandis. And he says the Bhajanandis worship the Lord only for their own personal benefit, but the Gosjanandis try to elevate all others to Krishna consciousness so that they may be saved. And so some examples of those absorbed in Bhajanandis are like Gaura Das Babaji, um, Jagannath Das Babaji, Haridas Thakur, and so on. And of course, they're not to be imitated. That's impossible to imitate them. And also, even more importantly, is that to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, uh, in the mood of Lord Chaitanya, uh, we should preach. And Prahlad is also in that same mood. And that's because he was Paradukaduki, that the distress of others was his distress. And so he was preaching, trying to and help remove the distress of those around him. Can you imagine that, being the only devotee like that? And a young child. And everyone around you is demonic, thinking and acting, speaking in demonic ways. But his meditation, he was unaffected by those things. Affected in the sense, like we were saying, Paradukaduki. Affected in a way that, okay, how can I help these poor souls? And Prabhupada used the term mudha several times in this purport. He was saying, excuse me, fools and rascals. Um, and he quotes this verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Diskritino Mudha, chapter 7, text 15, which says, Namam Diskritino Mudha Prapajante Narada Mayaya Paritadhyana Ashuram Bhavam Ashritaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. And so I was thinking about this because Prabhupada uses this term so much, fools, rascals. So, and foolish, he said foolish in this verse as well. So I looked up what it means. You know, we all have a connotation of it, but I wanted to see how it's described in contemporary dictionaries. And it said that, see, did I write it down? Yeah. That foolish means it's a word describing a person, action, or idea which lacks good sense, judgment, or wisdom. And that's what foolish means. Lacking good sense, judgment, or wisdom means person, action, or idea. And so in the purport of 715, Prabhupada gives four different patterns uh, of mudhas. And he says, the mudhas are those who are grossly foolish, like hard-working beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves and so do not want to part with them for the supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. This humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under fear of being beaten by his master, and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. The ass sings poetry and philosophy sometimes, but this braying sound only disturbs others. This is the position of the foolish, fruitive worker who does not know for whom he should work. And then another class out of the four, that was one of the types of mudas. Another class of duskriti or miscreant, he says, is called the Naradama, or the lowest of mankind. Nara means human being, and Adama means the lowest. Out of the 8,400,000 different species, there are 400,000 human species. And out of these, there are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed, but who have no religious principles, must be considered Naradamas. And so that would kind of describe the the world we live in, you know, of modern advancement. Uh, Modern technological advancement uh, is really spiritual and material degradation because it harms Mother Earth, it disrupts the natural way of life that is meant to be and following Dharma. Uh, and it's also uh, full of, as Ranmat Swami says, weapons of mass distraction. Um, and one of them being these little devices here. And over the retreat weekend, this past weekend, where there were about almost 300 people here, um, with Ramapat Swami and Hari Parsha Prabhu, Hari Parshad was making a joke. He actually composed this verse. I can't remember it, but um, it was making a play on the cell phone thing. But anyway, I can't remember what the point of it was, but it was funny. Um, yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, modern advancement is actually degradation, and there are so many weapons of mass destruction. So instead of simplifying existence, we're complicating the problems of existence. Uh, I was just hearing yesterday that I haven't explored it or understood it completely yet, but that a AI is artificial intelligence that's sweeping the entire world. That it takes a certain amount of water to create something like that, and once that happens with that water is completely contaminated. You can't do anything with it, or something like that. Um, and so there's so many things like that that are going on in the world that are just exploiting the resources of material nature that that are just making things more complicated. And so I didn't mention the other two types of mudras that Prabhupada gives, but I'll try to do that really quick and I keep moving. Uh, well, in the last paragraph of that purport of Bhagavad Gita 7:15, concisely he says, the four are grossly foolish persons, the lowest of mankind, the Naradamas. Three, the deluded speculators, like modern day scholars and so on, and the professed atheists. So, so Prahlad Maharaj is the perfect example of a compassionate devotee, and devotees who go out and do book distribution, preaching programs like Yashadev, Nanandini, and BYC, and so on. It's in the mood of Gosjanandi, and it's also in the mood of Lord Chaitanya. And I was thinking today how a book distributor is actually doing a glorious service. You know, of course, Prabhupada wanted it. Um, and the image that came to mind that just by meeting a devotee, coming in contact with a devotee, people are being blessed. And the devotee is like sifting through the people, finding the ones that have actually got to a point in their lives where they're wondering, why is there so much suffering in this world, and why am I suffering so much, and what is the answer to all this stuff? Who am I? Why am I here? You know, all these existential questions. So the devotee coming in contact with so many people on book distribution is kind of sifting out, looking for the ones that are ready to take the next step, you know. But even if one doesn't take a book, just by looking in the eyes of the devotee, you know, coming in contact with the devotee, or just holding the book, you know, they're getting so much Agyata Sakriti. And lastly, before I open up for comments or questions. There's Prabhupada in the end of today's purport. He quotes from Ajalila 7:128 that Amara Agyaya Guru Hana Tara E Desha, that one should become a guru and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world simply by preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So I wanted to go back to the verse that he quotes, and of course, in that verse, Mahaprabhu is not saying men become guru. He just says become guru, and he says in that verse he says instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. And this is something that actually we were reading in um, the CC group that Devaki Priti facilitates. We were recently reading this particular verse in the context of the other verses around it, uh, dealing with the life of or the pastime of Lord Chaitanya with Kurma Brahman, and how the Kurma Brahmana had spent 4 ecstatic days, hosting Lord Chaitanya at his home. And by the end of that time, um, after 4 days, Lord Chaitanya was ready to move on. And Kurma Brahmana wanted to leave his family and go with him. And Lord Chaitanya said, uh, don't speak like that. Basically he said that stay at home, preach, and spread the glories of the holy name. And then he also added that in this way, you will never leave my association. So, um, what a powerful instruction. And so he said, uh, I'll go back. Okay, yeah. So in the verse before that, on 127, Sri Chaitanya Prabhu said, don't speak like that again. Better to remain at home and chant the holy name of Krishna always. And then he said, instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further advised the Brahmin Kurma, if you follow this instruction, your materialistic life at home will not obstruct your spiritual advancement. Indeed, if you follow these regular principles, we will again meet here, or rather, you will never lose my company. So I dare say that if that's the case for the Kurma Brahmana, it's the case for any of us, that Lord Chaitanya would never lose our association. If we chant always, if we try to preach the holy name and give Krishna consciousness, be a carrier of the mercy of Krishna, then we will also have that same benediction from Lord Chaitanya. So I end right there and see if there's any comments or questions. The verse again is My dear Lord, you are always transcendently situated on the other side of the river of death, but because of the reactions of our own activities, we are suffering on this side. Indeed, we have fallen into this river and are repeatedly suffering the pains of birth and death and eating horrible things. Now kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering. And by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us and maintain us. So we have about 4 minutes. If anyone wants to share anything.
Thank you for your class, Prabhu. Appreciate it. This is Kalia.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking about a thought from you about compassion. What's the first thing that comes up about compassion? Because I think of your Gumraj, I think of compassion. What's the first reflection you have with your Gumraj and his compassion?
Hmm. He embodied compassion. He actually, in his pranam mantra, compassion is a part of it. And he he embodied compassion. I mean, he really understood human nature, and he he had such a desire to please Srila Prabhupada and to preach. And one of the things he did, which is also what I think David Rita Maharaj also did, was he went beyond that iron curtain, you know, in a black body in Russia, you know, preaching in those countries, and 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 that's just like just unbelievable, you know, the compassion. Um, so in short, I'll stop there and see if there's any other comments or questions anyone has. We have about 2 minutes left.
Haribol Prabhu, continuing with what the question Kalia asked, I just wanted to add that Bhaktivedanta Maharaj had a certain fearlessness, kind of like, we're reading this passport with Lord Brahma has asked Prahlad to go and appease Nrsimha because everybody else is scared.
Right.
But Shri Prahlad has this such a love for Krishna, even in his most ferocious form, that he has no hesitation to go and approach him. And so Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, when he saw something that wasn't right, he had absolutely no hesitation in addressing it, whether he was, dealing with his god brothers, whether he was dealing with just entrenched ideologies within the movement. I remember one time when I first came to this country and we were in the preaching center in Maryland. And in the morning program, the men stood in front and the women were in the back, but we were in an L-shaped room. So all the women could see were the men. And when Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj saw that, he said, everybody just come forward, the women come forward, be right in front of the deities. What's the point of you meditating on the men when you're supposed to be meditating on Krishna? And everywhere that he went, if he saw something that wasn't right, he fixed it. He did something about it. When women were being disrespected in Mayapur, because they didn't want women to give class, he stood up and yelled at the entire congregation and made them, do the proper thing. So he was fearless, and that's, I think, what he instilled in us, a fearlessness to do what is right because it is right, and to just move forward and know that Krishna has us. I just wanted to add that. Haribol.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, and that pastime in Mayapur, he uh, somehow the book wasn't there. Not I mean, there was no book. You know, I don't know, maybe there was no cartels or something. There
Nothing.
was
They didn't
them
do
doing
anything.
stuff.
No
Right.
asana, no flower garland, no microphone. They just thought that they were just going to get away with that and let it pass like that. But he said
He,
no.
he roared like a lion, you know, and yeah. And so they ran and got everything that she needed for the class. Any other last comment?
I dare say that we need not feel safe to surrender, but when we surrender, we'll feel safe. In
I'm
answer to your
sorry,
question.
I can barely hear you. I don't know if it's the same for
In
others.
answer to your question, I dare say we need not feel safe to surrender, but when we surrender, we'll feel safe.
Thank you. Thank you for answering. I forgot I just said that. Yes, and that was the case for Prahlad. That's why he always felt safe, right? Because he was always surrendered it to the Lord, even in dangerous situations. But yeah, but because of our identification with the body and the, the effect of the material modes, we think we have to feel safe before we can surrender. We feel like it's jumping off a cliff, um, letting go of our material attachments, or going beyond what is comfortable for reaching. Um, but that's actually surrender, and there's more safety in that. So, David Kipriti?
Thank you for your class, Dad. Wonderful class. So many good points. And I love this. I love the point about compassion. And I'm currently reading in Spiritual Warrior 2, Chapter 8, and he talks all about compassion, what it's not, what it is. And I think the biggest thing I'm learning from reading that chapter is that, like, compassion is so much beyond ourselves. Like, I read a quote the other day where he was saying it's not just about, like, oh, I'm just tolerating what someone's doing and I'm just trying to help them, or like to show that you're superior to them. But it's really like it's really selfless that you have a deep desire, unconditional desire to help someone else. And as devotees are already saying, that's so much exemplified in Bhakti Chit Maharaj.
Thank you for sharing. You said chapter 8, the spiritual warrior too?
Yes, chapter 8.
Thank you. Well, it's after 8, but I haven't heard the conch shell, so we can keep going until the conch blows. If anyone would like. Oh, yes, I was thinking also in the last connection about safety and surrender that, the peace formula, Bhoktaram Yagya Tabasham, that let's see, let me pull it up really quick. It's the last verse in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 529. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace in the pangs of material miseries. Because the tendency in the material world is to try to use material things to mitigate the pangs of material miseries. But that's actually impossible, you know, and that's part of the illusion, the illusory nature, and it's ignorance. I heard someone saying that ignorance means that we ignore the truth. And now the supreme truth is about to appear, because the conch shell has blown. Frantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.
Yay!
Shri Radha Damodar ki. Jaya Lalita Shaka Lalita Vishaka Shaka Shaka Jaya Lalita Lalita Dora Nita Dora Sakanta.
Yeah.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasarine Nirvishesha Aschachamudita Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasarine Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Prasarine Srimad Bhagavatam Shivasani Gaurabhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasani Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasani Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama, Signing off, Prabhus. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.